So let me officially start. My name is Julia Hanksler. I'm an educational technologist for the Faculty of Education. So I work primarily with Faculty of Ed. If you want to get a hold of me after this, my email is just julia.hanksler@viu.ca. My on-campus extension is 2630 if you want to phone me. And my office is in 356, which is the education building. And I think it's 223, but I always get my room confused with the computer lab, which is probably a Freudian thing. So it's either 221 or 223, but they're right next to each other. Now, I'm going to erase that and give you the URL that you can get the presentation from. Okay. And it's bit.ly. That's the easy part. You don't have to put www or http or anything in front of it. bit.ly/Y 916 little v big J. If you go there, that will take you to that Dropbox folder. And inside it, there are two things. Did it work? Okay, let me just try it up here. bit.ly/Y 9. It could be I instead of 1. I'm going to try I. Capital I. 6 B3. Let's see if that's it. Nope. That's got to be 1. Okay, let's not worry about that right now. I'll get the right link for you. Let's just get rolling. It's not critical. You got the handout, and the handout has everything on it. Okay, so basically, as I said, we're going to review some basic design concepts. Some of them will be quite similar to what you've done with Alana Williams in the design. Some of them will be a little different because it's slightly my take on it as well. We'll do a review of basic PowerPoint terms and actions, like things that you'll do, things that you'll need to do in order to work with the template. And then you'll get hands-on with a basic template that I've designed that's got the VIU logo and colors already done on it for you. And then I'll give you a link where you can get some more templates. So if you want to play with some other templates, you can do that. I should have brought my wireless presenter. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that all of these are on my Delicious account. So any link that you see here, don't scramble to write it down. You'll be able to get it off Delicious, and I can bring you there later. Okay, so let's go over some design basics. The first thing is the poster, its job is to market your ideas. So you want to maximize the visuals. So you want to get some good visuals that you can put in there. You don't want this to be text heavy. Ultimately, you want to have it like between 300 and 800 words total on that 3 foot by 4 foot. Oh yeah, I know your eyes ready. So if you can have some graphics, graphics speak louder than words. They catch our attention. So if you want to say or share more, so say you're looking at your poster and your poster is getting kind of busy with text. One of the ways that you can deal with that is to do a handout. And the handout can have your beautiful poster in color on here, on one side. And then on the back, you can give some extra detail that you aren't able to provide in that poster. So if you absolutely think there's burning content that they should have other than what's on your poster, then do that. So what are your key components? One is layout. Where are things on the poster? The second real important one is color. Colors can make or break. They can make it horrendous, and we're going to talk a little bit about color. The next thing is the headline, the title bar, or the masthead if you're used to paper and journalism. That would be the top of it. The next is the actual copy that you put into it, so your text and your info that you're putting in. And the last item is illustrations and graphics, which really shouldn't be last in terms of importance. So the characteristics we're looking for is one, it has to be readable writing. So it has to be stuff that people can read without much difficulty. It has to be legible so that it can be read from a distance. Most people will be at least 6 feet from your poster. Some people will get up close, but you want to have it so they can read it from at least about 6 feet. And it's going to be well organized for the layout. And the last thing is tight writing. So you don't want to go. Therefore, after 20 trials, we decided that we would try something different. You need to cut that down. So what does it mean for readable writing? There needs to be a logical flow. You got to take your viewer from point A to point B in the most efficient way. Keep your jargon out of it, unless you know for sure that everybody who's viewing your research paper is a biology professor and you've done some type of biology research. So you want to keep it free of jargon and definitely error-free in terms of grammar, if you can manage it. In terms of legible design, you want to have it read from minimum 6 feet, 10 feet away. Well organized, we're going to look at logical or balanced visual flow as you're going through it, and good use of white space. How many of you have read the classified ads to buy anything, rent anything? Have you noticed the ones that actually leave white space around them, like kind of like margins around them, they pop. And that's what you want to do with your content too. For your tight writing, be succinct. Okay, if you like to talk a lot when you write, if you like to use a lot of words, find a friend who doesn't and get them to help you edit it. Use images, because the images can show a lot more. You may have to write a paragraph to describe something that a good graph or a good illustration would readily show with one caption and a picture. And the last thing is, you are not married to paragraphs, okay? Look at something. If a point form would make more sense, then use point form. Okay, so this is one of the only things that I could find where somebody actually did some research on how do people digest posters. Now, they weren't research posters, they were advertising posters. But one of the things they found is that this is the process that somebody's going to go through when they look at your poster. They're going to take an initial scan, which will basically give them a low resolution impression of the whole. Then something's going to catch their eye from that low resolution. Something's going to pop out. And then they make a specific selection with their eye. The eye will move to that section. It will then focus on that section. And that's when you get the high resolution. So somebody's actually going to pay attention to what's there, right? And they found, interestingly, that 18 to 34-year-olds were more interested in visual elements like graphics. And older people tend to be interested more in the text, the story, which was kind of interesting. Now that's just in a marketing one. When somebody comes and looks at it, this is the order in which they will focus on things. They will look at the headline first. Your headline has to be big, and you don't want it long. Like if you have one of these like 3-line titles in your research, carve it down. The next thing they're going to look at is illustrations. And the last thing that they will look at in order will be the text. So that's where you got to grab them. You got to grab them with the headline. You got to grab them next with your illustrations. And then last, they're going to read your body text. In terms of actual time that they will spend reading, body text is the one where they will spend their time once they get there. Headline is second. Now that's only one top thing. That shows you how important that headline area's got to be, right? The next is your illustrations and photos. Okay? So that's how long somebody will spend looking at something. So it's going to be body text, and you expect that because you're going to have to stand there and read it. But headline, who would expect that that would be the second thing that they would spend time looking at? Okay. Reading direction. Now, I make a caveat here. This is North American reading flow. And a lot of people don't talk about that. If you are presenting to people in other cultures, they have different ways of reading text. So in a Western culture, we are comfortable reading left to right, and then from top to bottom. So we keep going like this in the one column, and then we know, shift over to this one, shift over to this one. So that's why it says Western is left to right, top to bottom, and then the columns from left to right. So you need to know that that's how people are going to read it. However, Arabic, Hebrew, Chinese, and Japanese do not read in the same fashion, in the same directions. So if you are creating a poster and you're going somewhere else with it, you should know what their reading conventions are. Okay? So know your audience, it's important. The other thing is font choice. There's a big difference in projected font, which is what I'm doing now, projected text, and actual text that you're going to sit and read on a page or read on a poster board. When we're dealing with projected, we want sans serif. And serif are these little squiggly things, okay, that help define where a letter starts and ends. If we are dealing with print in general, and you have a big block of text, you must be using serif fonts, and I'll give you a list of what those are. So in your poster, titles and headings, it's a quick read in general, so those can be sans serif, and they usually work well with sans serif. But any block of text with dense information, you want to have in a serif font. Okay, what are some examples? For sans serif that we would use in a title or a heading, or even like a subheading, like introduction, methods, those kinds of things. You use Helvetica, Arial, Verdana, Tahoma, Lucida Sans, and there's another called Universe. For serif fonts, you've got Garamond, Baskerville, Gaudi, Times New Roman. These three are red because they don't show up as options in PowerPoint, but you can, if you know how to, you can add fonts to PowerPoint, to your system. But some other ones are Palantino, Bembo, and Jansen. I know people are like, Times New Roman, Times New Roman is a standard because it's easy to read in dense text, okay? And you're gonna have to play with it, right? You may say, I want Tahoma, and then you look at it with like Gaudi, and you're like, ooh, not a good marriage, right? So you're gonna have to eyeball it. I've given you, the template's already got it, and I think I've used, I wanna say Verdana and Times New Roman, but we'll see when we get there. But look at it. If you pick a sans serif and a serif that don't go well together, just pick another pair. Now you're not gonna have to do that if you use a template, or if you use other people's templates, you might alter them. So just be aware of that. All right, ensure legibility. The title, people will say, can be between 80 and 100 font. I would like you to see on the template if you can maintain that 100 font, because that headline is your hook. If you're in journalism, that's your hook to get people in, right? Ooh, what's that about? Ooh, read the title. Okay, the next thing is author's information, that's 60-point bold. That's still in the header information, so that's going to be, you can see this is a sans serif font. Your program or department, I put that at 60-point, not bold. So that's kind of next thing down. Headings, for areas like we're going to look at introduction, methods, those kinds of things. I say 48-point bold. And you're still using a sans serif there. You can see the body is a serif font. 28, give or take. Don't go lower than 28. You can go higher than 28 if you've got space to fill, but then you have to have it consistent if that's your text. And captions, I say 28-point bold and plain. You can use both. So you might say figure 1 in bold, and then the text that follows, I don't know, temperatures, fluctuation over 3 weeks. And that's in captions. Now, that isn't a really good caption. Your caption, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit, shouldn't say temperature fluctuations over 3 weeks. That caption should say what you want them to walk away with from that graphic. Temperature fluctuations varied widely over 3 weeks. You want them to have that in the caption. So if they didn't get it from the picture, your caption should say what they should have gotten from that graphic. Okay, legibility and backgrounds. Text needs high contrast. So theoretically speaking, you have black on white or white on black, or just a light color on a black background, or a dark color on a light background. Generally speaking, the higher the contrast, the more things pop out. So generally, from a print perspective and from a reading perspective, we want to see dark print on light backgrounds. So that's our high contrast. Oops. Keep it plain. I know you can put all kinds of funky things in the background of your poster, but they're going to compete with your wonderful research findings and all that hard work you did. You don't want somebody to walk away from your poster and say, oh, look at that great background graphic. You want them to walk away from the poster and say, that was wonderful research, right? You know, we've got to follow up on that. We want to see that. So we're going to keep it plain. I'm going to show you some ways to do that. So avoid, if you have a burning desire to have some great graphic, like say you found, I don't know, some gene strand, and you can say what it is, and you actually have like a graphic of this gene strand, and you want to use it in the background. You can do that, and we can bump down the transparency, but you don't want it to pop forward in front of your text, okay? You can use patterns in the background, and you can make them less busy by using, we're going to adjust some transparency, those kinds of things. But know that any visual information is going to compete with your content. And you want to keep that competition down. Patterns versus textures. Background textures or gradients are okay, but you don't want them obtrusive. Like I've seen some online where it's like really dark, fading down to light, and your eyes going, you know. It's easier for your eye just to look at a background that's a flat color if it can, or something that's pretty close to a flat color. Okay. Anybody here with an art background? All right. Okay. There are two types of color, analogous and complementary. Okay? Analogous colors, I'm going to make sure that I get this right, and that's the color wheel that we're looking at up there. Analogous colors are close, they're adjacent, they're nearby on the color wheel. Okay? Complementary colors are opposite. Okay? Stay away from complementary colors. And in particular, complementaries tend to strain the brain when they're reading them for information. Stay away from red and green. Blue against an orange or orange against a blue actually vibrates when you look at it. You do not want those combinations. So absolutely stay away from those. And just as an aside, supposedly the most effective projected combination is yellow on blue or blue on yellow. It doesn't look so hot, but it's the thing that your eyes pick up the most on a projected surface, so not on your poster. Okay, so avoid those. Okay? The other thing you need to know is that there are colorblind people in our population. Right? So you need to be aware of that, especially if you create a bar graph or a line graph that's usually red and green as to the tracking, or two colors that are close to each other. And I'm going to take you to a place where you can take a graphic from your computer and run it through what it would look like to a visually colorblind person, and different types of colorblindness. So you can make sure that graphic, and we already know, I've been talking about that, your illustrations of graphics are extremely important. And you want them to show well even to somebody who is colorblind. Okay? So if you want, what you can do, you can actually save your whole poster, PowerPoint file, as a JPEG. So you could look at your graphics individually because you've got them on there in like a JPEG format. Or you can make the whole poster, save the poster as a JPEG, and then you can run it through this VizCheck. Okay? And there's like, I'll click on it right now so you can see what it does. And it's very cool because part of my life, I always wondered, my husband's partially colorblind. And I've always wondered what things look like. Let's see if I can make this bigger. I'll just turn off the lights for a minute here. Okay. So these actually show you, there are three types of colorblindness, main colorblindness. And it shows you if it's a blue-yellow deficit, this is what that same graph would look like. If it was a red-green, you can see. So you need to be careful if your graphics or your poster are very color dependent, you should run them through there, that VizCheck. And again, I'll bring you back and I'll make sure you have the right URL for that delicious list of links. Okay. So basically, when you're selecting your palette for your poster, pick 2 to 3 analogous colors. So 2 to 3 nearby colors, they can be different shades of a particular color, like a darker shade, a lighter shade. But stay with 2 to 3 nearby colors for your palette. Vary the shades lighter, darker. They have found that Westerners like green and blue. They like looking at things that are green and blue. In general, avoid red, yellows, and oranges unless it's branded. And here it is not branded with our institution. I'm going to show you. WPI in the States, their logo is actually red. So in their case, it works. Okay? So this is their school logo. So they're really playing off that color, and for them it makes sense. But in general, if you were to start from scratch, Westerners like blues and greens. So they can be lighter colors, darker colors, those kinds of things. Also, if you end up working for a company someday, companies like Coca-Cola is branded red. Home Depot is branded orange. So you might use things like those colors if you're presenting for them. The other thing about legibility is avoid strong gradients. You can see how you lose legibility. You know, this person thought they were using this funky, you know, gradient graphic. It looks like it pops out. Well, it does. But it also makes it more difficult to read than just a flat color with the white text. Okay? So, try to avoid any strong gradient blends like that, two very different colors. Stay away from cheesy effects. Okay? And any large color jumps, so like red to green or black to white in a color gradient, those kinds of things. You don't want to have them right next to each other like that because they just don't work well. Okay, another thing to keep in mind, how many of you have acronyms in your content, in your copy, in your stuff that you'll be posting here? Like something like American Medical Association or Canadian Pediatric Association. Okay. You want to watch how big the acronyms appear. So what you want to do is, here, I used a smaller sized font. I scaled it down just a size or two to make it look so it's not like towering over the sentence there, right? So you can use that. Or you can use small caps. It looked very close. It's actually a little bigger than what I did there. Or you could use small caps for those acronyms. Okay, so that's a little trick. Okay. Images and figures. So I'm going to turn off the light so you can see this. Okay. This is called pixelization. Okay? This is when you have a low resolution graphic or it's not in enough definition that it displays properly. This one's getting better, but it's still pixelated because you can see the boxes. And this is a nice, smooth one, right? You want your graphics to look like this. Okay? What does that mean? One, in terms of why are images important, it helps you minimize the amount of text you're going to use. The images will be more powerful if they're clear, including your line graphs. The resolution should be approximately 150 to 300 pixels per inch unless you are using a photograph. If you are using a photograph, you should go for 1200, like a high resolution graphic. Now, it may not print on the poster that way. Like you may have to go to the print shop and get your poster printed out and you look at it and that photograph that you put on there is kind of fuzzy. Don't worry about it. Go back again and get another copy printed like on glossy photograph, just that one piece, and paste it right over that other one. And you'll have a nice, really high resolution graphic. Okay? The other thing is when you paste things in, it'll say, okay to resample. Now, resampling does one of two things. If you're taking a big graphic and you're bringing it in and you're making it smaller, resampling is okay. Because actually from going from a bigger image to a smaller image, you're losing information anyway. But what happens is if you resample a smaller image and you paste it into that template, you ask it to make it bigger, the program guesses as it blows up the picture what would fill in the spaces between the actual points from the picture. And that's why you get things that start looking like this. They start making guesses. So if you need to upsize something, upsize in the graphics program so you actually have a good size, like either 100% size version, or there's something that's called an SVG, a scalable vector graphic. If you're buying something to put in there, or downloading something off the internet, a scalable vector graphic, an SVG, does not lose any of its resolution. You can make it tiny, you can make it huge, it doesn't lose anything. After that, you want a PNG file, a PNG file. And JPEG's your last type. Now what about graphs? Now this isn't my area of expertise, but I found this. This is, somebody was saying that if you want to show averages or means, use a line plot graph. So that's like, you know, the axis and a line, right? If you want to show medians, then use a box plot graph. I'm going to show you some of these. If you want to show relationships or correlations, you have a scatter plot, and that's the one where the line goes up and you got the dots on either side. You could do regression plots if you want to show two variables in relation to each other. Now, how many of you actually have data that you've translated into graphics at this point? Okay, this is important, and I'm going to show you, there's a page that somebody has where they show, you know, if you show this data in a table versus when you show it on some type of graphic, it makes a huge difference. Bar graph is really good for counts. Okay, powerful graphs. North Carolina State University has a great resource. And now I'm going to scale it down so you can see it. Okay, so here is, you have this great data, right? Something like this. And maybe you've already crunched the numbers, so you know what that means, ultimately what that means. I, on the other hand, I'm just looking at 2 columns of numbers, and I have to read into what does this mean. So to show you the difference about what a good graph will do, zoom out. Whoa, not that far out. Okay. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I can tell the trend is going up and there's some outliers there, which I cannot tell easily by looking at a column of 2 numbers. Okay? So, if you have numbers or data that you've taken like that and you need to crunch it in a visual way for your people. And tell them, put a caption down here, figure 1. I don't know what these 2 things are, but put what you want them to get out of that picture underneath it. Okay. The other thing is that they need to be clean and simple. And again, North Carolina State University has a really good resource on that. Go back to them again. Okay. So look at the difference between these 2. Right? This one put a gray background, doesn't really stand out. This is much cleaner. This is a better version than this one is, right? And you can look at, one was colored here, both were colored, the yellow's fading against there, so then it went to black. Some kind of gradation chart of some type. Anything else on here? Yeah. Okay, so this is what the original one looked like, and then they cleaned it up. Here. Now this is one. What would we want to do with this graphic? They used red. Anybody?
Put green on.
Well, we don't know. But I would run this through that VisiCheck to see what that would look like to somebody with color blindness before I threw it in there. There should be enough contrast between the red and the red and the black. And notice they also put the triangle marks and the box as another kind of indicator there. So I said pings over JPEGs if you've got to save something, pings or SVGs, scalable vector graphics, especially for line art like graphs. Okay? You're okay with some fuzzy edges with certain things, but with a line, anything that's a line, you want it to be sharp, you want it to be crisp, so you want to get the highest resolution. The other thing you have to determine is, should you include a scale? Like, does the axis need a scale? If it doesn't, then don't put it on there. Does it need a scale? And the scale doesn't have to be, maybe in your research and you put it in your paper and it had like every 5 units, was a box across the graph. Does it need to show that? Maybe you could go every 10 or every 15 or every 20. Okay? And label the axes so people know what they're looking at when you put it in there, if you do a graph. Okay. Now talking about balance, this one is not balanced, the red lines through there. But there are different ways that you can balance your graphics and your visuals. But the idea is that when somebody looks at it, you don't want it to look like a lopsided teeter-totter, which is sort of what this one does. All the graphics went down. And generally speaking, this is the area that the eye is going to focus on. So in this one, they put a big graphic in the middle. Another fellow, Colin Purrington, I really like his templates. We're not using this type of template, but I'm showing you this template is available. And you can use a much bigger section in the middle. We're doing the 4-column layout. This is a 3-column layout, where the results are the most important thing, and they're focused right in the center, and you can put all kinds of graphics. I'm going to show you some of the examples using that template. So it's possible to use that template. You got to make sure your poster boards that they're providing for you are 36 by 48. So you got to make sure that anything you do will print out to that size.
Is that 3 feet by 4 feet?
Yes, 3 feet by 4 feet. Yep. Okay. Now, the other thing is, there's conventional and unconventional. It depends on you. So, in a conventional layout, you have the beginning, the middle, and the end of your story. Your introduction, your purpose, your methods, your results, and your conclusions. Okay? There are other ways to present data. Okay? In our case, that'll be interest, purpose, methods, and conclusion. The idea behind that is it's supposed to build interest so that people will keep reading. Some people like a more unconventional approach where they start with the conclusions, right? Because they say, oh, that's what people come for anyway, they just want to read the conclusions. So they'll front load the conclusions and then put the other things after it. I ran that by a couple of the master's instructors and they're like, well, we don't like that, we like it more traditional. So I'm just saying, you don't have to stick that way, but know your audience. So if the audience is a fairly conventional audience, then stay with that. Okay, so I showed you this one. This one's a conventional one in terms of layout. It's got 3 columns. This is the WPI one. Actually, it's probably still up. Come on. We don't even have to go there. And then this is Colin Torrington. You can see how his results, and look, what is he relying on to speak about his results? Pictures, right? So you don't have to tell somebody what these hooves look like. Whoa. You don't have to tell somebody what those hooves look like because they can see it for themselves, and that is far more powerful. Whoops. Okay, so here's a WPI. Still very good use of graphics, even from the beginning. Here, okay. There's actually quite a bit of text on here that begins to look pretty busy. And then we look at the other one that Colin's got there. It's taking a long time to load. All right. I'm just going to skip. I'll skip that pass. But you can see how the reliance is on the image to speak the story. Okay. So a template, even the one that I give you today, is just a starting point. You're going to download it pretty soon. What you should do out of the gate is save a pure master that you're not going to mess with. So you're going to call out like template A, and you may have 3 templates that you're working with. So template A master, template B master, template C master. What that allows you to do is if you have a massive epic fail at some point, you can go back to that original one, right? And then what you should start doing is saving the versions as you go. So I'm working for a while, I call it version 1. Okay, I'm going to keep that one. I may work on it, I may do some other things. I'm now going to call that version 2, V2. And then I may go back and look at the comparisons, right? Do I like V1 better? Do I like V2 better? Maybe I don't like them all and scrap it and I go back to the master. But when you're working, that's what you need to do. The other thing that you need to do is to know how scalable it is. So the template height over the template width equals the print height over the print width, right? So a template, if you go online and find some other template and it's 24 by 36, if that's doubled, it'll move up to a 36 by 54. If you get a 24 by 48, it's doubled, it'll go up to here. So you can use other templates, but just make sure it's scalable to your print. And your print version is 36, 3 feet, by 48. Okay. So those are the design elements. I'm going to tuck those away and do a quick go over, a quick thing of basic vocabulary for PowerPoint. This is a slide. It's like a page. This is the slide. So when I say a slide, that's what it is. A tab is a menu group at the top of PowerPoint. Okay? These are tabs. So I refer to tabs. If I say design tab, I want you to click there on that tab. I'm going to stay in this view, get down to where we were. There we are. Okay. All right. Design is a tab that we're using a lot. It's that one up there, so it's the Design tab. In Design tab, there's something that's called Background Styles. So I'm going to click on Design. And Background Styles is over there. And this will allow me to change on the template, the far back, the actual like wallpaper that we're working on. Fill. Fill is if I have an object, I can change the color of it. So if I were to draw an object on this slide right now, insert shapes, I'm just going to pick any shape. I draw a shape. Right now that has a light blue fill. Maybe I don't like that. So I'm going to right click on it, and I can format the shape, and I can pick, it says solid fill, no fill, gradient fill, all kinds of things. You can pick different colors, and now it's gray. Or I can change this transparency. I'll show you how to do that later. just quick review vocabulary here. An object is anything that's on the slide. So this text box is an object. If I put a shape on that, this is another object. When I select them, they get handles. Handles allow us to resize it. Okay? And the green handle is a special handle because it allows you to rotate the object. So I can grab any handle and make my box bigger or smaller, and then I can use that to rotate. Okay? Green one. Basically, a text box is just a box with text in it. We have the one that's at the top, we have this one here. Okay. One of the things you really need to understand is grouping. Because what's going to happen on the template is that you're going to have several things happening. You have the background. On top of the background is a box, and then a color, and then a text box is floated on top of that. Now what you want to do, once you get things laid out the way you like them, you're going to want to group them. Because what that means is you can't move the text box without moving the whole box, so they'll stay together, those kinds of things. So you want to understand the concept of grouping. But maybe you don't like the color that I chose for the column, the background to the column. Now for you to change that, you're going to have to unselect that big group, and you're going to have to ungroup it. Then you're going to be able to change the color of the background, and then you're going to want to regroup it because you don't want to be moving small pieces accidentally, like a title bar out of there or a text piece out of there. So you're going to have to understand how to group and ungroup. You can also select a group of objects merely by taking your cursor and dragging it over. You click, drag, and it'll select multiple objects and let go. You're drawing a big box around things, and it'll select multiple objects. The other one that I like, because sometimes you'll click, drag, and you'll get like 4 things that you didn't want in there. The other thing that you do is shift click. So if I want to select multiple objects, like say this text box, then I shift and click, and then I right click, whoops, shift click, hold it down, right click, and I would group it. And I could say now that's a group. So now if I do anything with this group, it stays as a piece, right? And then if I don't want it, I select it again, group, ungroup. You'll get to play more with that later. I just need you to understand that. If you need more time with grouping and ungrouping, there's this tutorial on it that you can follow up on later, or during the session while you're playing with your item. Now another really important thing is alignment. Okay? So align means that either you're aligning center, you're probably used to that, left justified, right justified, center. But I can also pick 2 objects, a shift click or a drag click, and I got 2 objects like here, and I can say align center, and they will line up. Okay? Very important. You can also select multiple objects and say distribute horizontally or distribute vertically so they'll be evenly spaced. Aligning is a very important skill. And like with the other one that I've given you, there's a tutorial. If you need more help than I've given you here, you need more time with the concept of aligning, you can go to this link. And I'll make sure you have the PowerPoint in front of you before we start working on it. Now, 2 more things that I need you to know are view terms that I'm talking about. So view establishes what you can see. So right now I'm in normal view. So that's the view tab, where are we here? View tab at the top. Okay? So right now I'm in normal view. But I could say, I could zoom in. And maybe I want to see it at 100%, the actual size. I don't want that. I'm going to close that. And there's the actual size. I could zoom more than that. I could zoom, or less than that. I could, let's see. Let's put 200%. Oh, it'll only go 100 on these. Okay. When we look at your poster, that 3x4 poster is going to have to fit here for you to deal with it. But when you get to the end, you're going to want to zoom to 100%, which means you'll only be able to see sections, but you want to do that to see how your graphics look, how your photos look, all those things. So at the last, you've got to make sure that you go to view that template at 100% and go through it. The other thing that's quite helpful when you're working is you can see in view there's things like ruler, which will show me when I grab something and drag it where it is. Okay? There's grid lines and guides. So guides would help me. See that little dash mark showing up? It's letting me know I'm right in the middle of the page. So those are guides. Guides will help you. Can you see what's happening here as I'm moving this? Let's take the grids off so you can see better. Okay, can you see those guide marks that are coming up? They help me see where to place something on the page. So if you're doing some design, especially like when you're working with your graphics and putting them on the page, you'll probably want to have, if not the grid lines on, because the grid lines can be confusing, you probably want to have the guides turned on when you're dragging those in. Because it'll also let you see where they are in relations to other items. So if I had a graphic up here and a graphic here and I wanted to align them, you could do it manually, or you could use the align function. Okay. The other thing you need to know is about layering. Okay? So from art, we know that there's a foreground, which is the thing closest to you, a midground, and a background. Right? You can bring objects forward or backwards. So, for example, when we're going to look at this template, there is, in a column, there's a dark column. The text box is on top of that. If you're messing with the background color, you may see, oh my God, it's come to the front and now I can't see my text. But all you'll say in a moment of panic, if you're not comfortable with layers, you go, my text is gone. Your text isn't gone. The box has now come to the front. We'll just select the box and we can send it, oh that should be, we can bring it forward or send it backwards, or we can bring it to the front or send it to the back. So you can do those. So bringing it to the front brings it to the very front or pushes it to the very back. Bringing forward just moves it one up or one down. So if you have 3 or 4 layers. I know this is kind of confusing. We're going to get hands-on with the template and you'll see what happens. If you're confused about layering, there's a layering tutorial. Okay. This is the template that I have developed for you. So this is displaying as gray, but this is more blue. So it's a 4-column layout. I've stuck some graphics in the middle. You don't have to use those. You can use whatever you want. Now let's see if this works. Yeah, it got me to the template. Okay, so maybe try typing the whole thing, and it shouldn't require it, but https://bit.ly/Y9. I think that is a 1. 6, small b, and a j. No spaces. See if we get there then. It worked for me. I'm going to check the hyphen.
That's a nice one. Anyone else on Spanish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it too.
Mine is working. Why is it working? And yours isn't.
Maybe it's an L after the number.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, try the L. I'm just going to get out of here and see if I can see it in the... Try it as an L. And let me know if that fixes it. Try it with an L. Anybody get it with
Yeah,
that?
it works.
Okay, L, sorry. Okay. And did you get the template?
Still loading.
Okay,
I
good.
can tell where it's going now. It's going to the right place.
Okay, good. And since we're here, I'm going to insert a comment that that is an L. Review, new comment. Thank you. Group problem solving there.
Should we download this template?
Yes, now download this and download it to your U drive or your thumb drive or whatever. And this is going to be your master. You got it, you got it. You're going to get it shortly. You got it?
It's looking like
Okay.
it's going to eventually.
Yes, it is. Yes.
My computer's just lost
So save that. Capital 1, 9, L, 6, B, capital J. Here's my pen. Yeah, we're good. Okay, yay, everybody's got it. It's fun when it works out. Okay, so I want you to save that. And then we're going to start working with it. I'll turn off the guidelines here for me. Okay. And what I want you to do is, even if you don't know your headline right now, just click into the headline area and enter something. You put your author's names, your program, your department. Okay? Go ahead and actually start working with this template now. And as soon as you've edited it in some fashion, you've put something in it, save that as version 1. So my poster version 1, whatever you want to call it. Okay? But put V1. So as soon as you make any edits to it, we're going to save this first one. Because now, if you were to just save it and not change the name of this, it will rewrite over the template file, your master. So you wouldn't be able to go back into that one should anything happen. So do your edit and save it as blah, 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 my poster version 1, whatever you want to call it. But just make sure that you put a V1 or version 1, VRS, whatever, at the end. You know.